Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
Delivered to a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and those of the mother have went for a walk. Came home, now they can't find her, live in Idahofour.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Where are your kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Chad, where are Lori's kids?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I hope you liked the new intro that I put together this weekend for you. I've also put together a visual timeline that is paired with the new information that we've gotten out of the affidavit. So not only have I added visuals to the timeline, but I've also incorporated some quotes and statements either from media or from people close to the people in the case. So we're just going to revisit some stuff that we kind of visited along the way up until the affidavit. And then now we're going to re-listen to some of it that I've clipped in there with the visuals and with me narrating some of the affidavit. I'm not going to read the whole affidavit. I'm just reading the highlighted parts and just sort of like the timeline, and then the synopsis that they do when they walk through and kind of give you a verbal narration of, you know, what they discovered when they showed up there. So thank you all for being here. And I'm so glad you liked it, Ashley Oaks. I put that together for you guys. So pretty much what I have is, let me just look at my notes. First and foremost, I wanted to give a shout out to Seth Huston. He sent me a PayPal over the weekend after he watched my Watts documentary. He's been following the case since it broke as well. So I was very happy that he liked it. And then I just wanted to thank him for sending me the PayPal for making it. You know, that was just beyond nice of him to do. And good morning, Karen and Insanely Confused, Pam, everyone else who's joined. Thank you so much for being here. I was thinking while we open up that I would just play a News Nation clip while we wait for everybody to come in. And then I will play the video file that I've put together for you guys. So pretty much, like I said, the video file will just have statements that we've heard before, but you know, some of these statements take a different meaning now that we know what we know in the affidavit. So we're just going to listen to a news clip first. Let me make sure I got everything else on the way. I'll look over my notes while this plays. Okay, so let me just play this. And like I said, I just want to play this because it was new. I hadn't watched it yet. I like Bobby Chacon and he was on News Nation. So I want to play this and then I will get into the stuff that I've edited together for you guys. Okay. And thank you again for being here. Hit like if you haven't done so already. And good morning, everyone, or good day, wherever you're watching. Thanks for being here.
Do you think the killer saw her? And if so, why may he have spared her life?
Well, it's a great question, Brian. And I think he did see her, but looking at the affidavit with the phone records and where he was, I think he had a certain plan. There was a plan in place that he had for this house. So he was executing a plan as he thought it was going to go in his mind. Now, all of the times that people do this, things go wrong. He might have only planned on 2 victims and it turned out to be 4. I think that the rage that he had that was building in the days and weeks leading up to the murders, I think all came out. And I think the opposite side of that rage is an adrenaline crash. And I think that after the 4th victim, it's entirely possible he crashed. He was simply so exhausted. And then you get kind of tunnel vision. He was looking to get out of that house as quickly as he could. And the other 2 people downstairs were not part of his plan. And so he walked right by her to get out of the house. So I think it's entirely possible he was simply too exhausted and it wasn't part of the plan that he had envisioned.
One of the creepiest things about this for me when I read over the affidavit was that he is accused of coming back to the house. That's what the cell phone records indicate, around 9:15 in the morning after the murders. Is it possible? I mean, do you think he may have been going back to go back inside? Do you think he realized that he left the knife sheath there?
You know, it could be, but I don't think so. I think this is sometimes classic criminal behavior where they revisit the scene of the crime. I think he might have gone back there to see if there were ambulances or police cars. He probably expected the police to be there already. And
I definitely like where Bobby's going with this, revisiting the crime. Good morning, crazy crime chick. First off, what are you doing up? I know that you're on West Coast, so thank you for being up this early. Second off, I'm curious what you think of this, crazy crime chick, and everyone in chat. Do you think that he went back in the morning because of this, like Bobby's saying, it's just what they do sometimes, they want to, revisit the scene? Or do you think that he thought, you know what, I left my sheath there, I'm screwed, they're going to catch me, I might as well go back there and see if I can see it, maybe I dropped it on the way to my car, it's worth it for me to retrace my steps a little bit to see if it's around where I parked or where I ran out of there, I'm caught anyways, I'm going to get caught going back there. Do you think it was something like that, and he just thought like it's worth it for me to kind of risk to see if I could find the sheath? Or do you think it's like what Bobby's saying?
I think he went back to look for police or what kind of activity was taking part at the house. Sometimes the thrill, we've seen people stand behind police lines at fires. Arsonists do this a lot. And so I think that he was driving by to see basically the fruits of his actions. If there were, there should have been by that time a lot of police activity and ambulance activity. So I think that might be, it's impossible to tell. This is all speculation on my part, but I think it's quite possible that he was going back there to expect to see a lot of police activity.
Yeah, and like you said, we hear that people like this get a very weird, strange thrill from things like that. Let's talk about these traffic stops in Indiana. There were the 2 stops, very suspicious. The FBI has come out and said that they didn't organize the stops. I mean, do you think it's possible that this was really just a coincidence that Kohberger and the dad got pulled over twice on the way back to Pennsylvania?
Well, I think it's possible now. I originally thought that it might have been orchestrated because it's an investigative technique that I myself used when I used to work the mafia.
And since we're on the subject of that stop being planned or not, my last live stream was last week, as you guys know, and it was titled FBI asks state police to pull Brian over. Well, I was literally reading an article from Fox News. I still have the screenshots. Evil CJ, my moderator, we looked at the same article the night prior to my live stream. I read the screenshots stating that, yes, this was orchestrated. FBI wanted state police to pull him over, blah, blah, blah. By 2 p.m., I was getting blown up with people saying that it wasn't true and it was fake news. And I was so confused because I linked the source in my description box and I had known that it was Fox. So I went through and I clicked on the article and it said edited at 2:15 p.m. So just to clear up any confusion for those who didn't know this already, the article that I had read in the morning for my live stream, they had edited by 2 p.m., retracting everything that they had stated. So here, Bobby is saying, like, I feel like maybe one of them could have been orchestrated because remember, he got pulled over twice, but they don't want to give out their tools and their tactics that they use. So they could be backpedaling because of that reason. Also, so I just wanted to clarify that for those who didn't know, like I wasn't purposely putting out information that wasn't true. Like obviously I put that information out and then you can see that they edited the article. I wanted to say good morning to Twisted Gemini, Corey, Chemistry Queen, Alex Erickson, and everyone else who has joined. I wrote some names down and Nikki Rex, so I don't forget you guys because sometimes I just don't get to see you guys in chat when things are going quick. So I just wanted to clarify that. And good morning, Lady V and everyone else who has joined.
In New York City, we used to have the NYPD radio cars, the uniform patrol, pull them over to ID who was in the car and things like that. So I think, I thought originally that at least the first one was orchestrated, probably not the second one, because you never want to do 2 of these too close together because the suspect can raise their suspicion that the police are on to them. So Initially, I thought the first one, particularly because it was a sheriff, and the sheriffs don't usually do traffic enforcement on the interstates. That's usually the state troopers, which the second stop was a state trooper. So I think when the FBI, they have no reason to lie that they didn't orchestrate it. This is a perfectly valid and legal investigative tool, and they wouldn't want to jeopardize the case by lying about it afterwards and things. So I think that, that if they didn't orchestrate it, now, it could have been orchestrated by the Idaho State Police. You know, that's something that people have said, and that's perfectly possible. But I think right now it might be just really a really weird coincidence.
Yeah, crazy coincidence. But you mentioned it. I mean, if it made him suspicious, there's the reports that once he got to Pennsylvania, he had the gloves on. He was moving the trash from his parents' house to the neighbor's house. So that all certainly came into play. I want to ask you about the knife, because I have heard, according to sources, that one possible defense strategy here could be trying to say that knife will not match up to the wounds. Do you think that could possibly come into play at a trial?
Well, it could, and the defense could certainly make that allegation. There will be very detailed testimony by the medical examiners and by people that are experts in wound patterns with this knife. Now, normally, depending on the stab wound, but sometimes you can actually match the knife up right to the wound. In this case, if the wounds are too graphic, if they're too gross, if they were too much together, you may not be able to get the exact knife fit in. So it all depends on the wound pattern. But I anticipate you will have the medical examiner or coroner give expert testimony for the prosecution. The defense will probably have its own experts come in and make an allegation exactly the way you described. I don't know that will prevail, but it's something the defense, is certainly open to trying.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your.
Okay, and thank you, Brooke, for letting us know. We kind of never touched on the audio on this channel, for one, because it happened over the weekend, and for two, I never believed it in the first place. But thank you for letting us know that it's been debunked. I sort of figured that was on its way. All right, so now I'm going to get into the stuff that I edited together for you guys, which starts off with Kaylee's sister making her statement that she made to News Nation last night. And good morning, Carolina, Jesse Lynn, and everyone else, Caroline, everyone who's joined. Thank you for being here. So let me just play this. And like I said, I really hope you guys like it. It's just a visual timeline that goes along and paired with the information from the affidavit. There's also visuals for the synopsis of the crime scene. So I may pause it here and there to kind of elaborate a little bit. So I hope you guys like it.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's been the hardest part of this, is to sit back and look at the totality of it. When my sister was FaceTiming me about a new egg bites recipe, he was planning his next visit to the home. And that's really difficult. It's really difficult not to wish that you had done more, wish that you had known more. But it's just the first step. A lot more evidence will come out. And I'm confident that Moscow Police Department, Idaho State Police, and the FBI have the right person, and I thank them from the very bottom of my heart.
When you go through the timeline and the affidavit and see all the dates of when the cell phones pinged, and I know you talk to your sister every day, you can actually go back and think of your conversations from those specific times.
Yeah, the August 21st date, I can go back and remember the conversation that I had with Kaylee that day, and how normal everything was, and the fact that we had no idea, she had no idea, I had no idea that true evil was genuinely watching them.
A citation from Latah County Sheriff's Office shows Bryankohberger was stopped by police on the 21st of August for failing to wear a seatbelt. The traffic stop took place at around 11:40 p.m. at the intersection of West Pullman Road and Farm Road in Moscow, Idaho. It is not clear what Mr. Kohberger was doing in the area at the time, just 1.7 miles and a 5-minute drive from the home on King Road. He was driving the same 2015 white Hyundai Elantra at the time of that citation. Is this when the stalking began on that house?
So do you guys think that that's when the stalking started, when he got that seatbelt violation in August? And thank you for becoming a member, Blue. Thanks for being here. We're happy to have you on the team.
I heard from her even before we went out. I think midnight is the last time I heard from her, and she was fine.
On the evening of November 12, 2022, Chapin and Kernodle are seen by BF at the Sigma Chi house on the University of Idaho campus from approximately 9 p.m. on November 12 to 1:45 a.m. on November 13th. BF also estimated that approximately 1:45 a.m. Chapin and Kernodle returned to the King Road residence. BF also stated that Chapin did not live in the King Road residence but was a guest of Kernodle. Goncalves and Mogan were at a local bar, the Corner Club, at 202 North Main Street in Moscow. Goncalves and Mogan can be seen on a video footage provided by the Corner Club between 10 p.m. on November 12th and 1:30 a.m. on November 13th.
And since we're here on this, the affidavit, like I'm reading, says, that they were here until 1:30. We see on the CCTV footage, this screenshot that we were given a few weeks ago, that it says 1:32 and they're still there. So this kind of drives me a little bit crazy because I like things very accurate. But then I'm also realizing that, this is an affidavit. This is an arrest affidavit. This is not the trial. This is not an 100% very accurate timeline. So I think while the affidavit says 1:30 they were there until, we can kind of use our own brains and realize that approximately just means, I don't know, like a buffer of 3 to 5 minutes, you guys would say, right? So even though the affidavit says they were at the Corner Club until 1:30, we see here the CCTV footage says 1:32. We're gonna keep all this kind of in our minds as like a little bit of a buffer, which was a little bit nerve-wracking as I was putting together these timestamps because I want it to be 100% accurate with you guys, 100%. So I also want to touch on the fact that later when we talk about the timeline of when Brian was circling the neighborhood, it says that he circled and stopped in front of near the house around 4:04. And then we have DM stating that she heard a noise upstairs at 4 a.m. Now, remember, approximately. So even though he's outside at 4:04 in his car, according to a CCTV footage nearby capturing him, Dylan claims that she hears the noise around 4. Now, we're just using a 3 to 5 minute buffer for these things. So just keep that in mind as we go through, because it drives me a little crazy because I'm saying 1:30 and we see right here on the screen it says 1:32, but I know that you guys understand what approximately means. So we're just going to use our best to just say, 3 to 5 minutes for all these times would be like a little bit of a safe buffer. And yes, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. And hit like if you haven't done so. And good morning, grannies watching and everyone else.
At the estimated time of 1:35 a.m., we see Kaylee and Maddie and the hoodie guy walking, discussing a prior event at the bar. At approximately 1:30 a.m., Goncalves and Mogan can be seen on video at a local food vendor called The Grub Truck at 318 South Main Street in downtown Moscow. The Grub Truck live streams videos from their food truck on the streaming platform Twitch, which is available for public viewing on their website. This video was captured by law enforcement. A private party reported that he provided a ride to Goncalves and Mogan at approximately 1:56 a.m. from downtown Moscow in front of the Grub Truck to the King Road residence.
Back again to this, he said that there was nothing out of the ordinary that night, that right now or in that moment that it was just an innocent conversation. Of course, the frats were bumping on a Saturday night, but here at the house, it was quiet and he saw nothing out of the usual. The rideshare driver said that he knows Adam. He knows he's a bartender, but Adam was not brought up once at all during that conversation. Again, no conversations about boys, drama, or any trouble. And as far as what the girls were feeling, he said they were not fearful. They weren't skittish in any way. Well, he said that it was actually a rather innocent conversation from the beginning. And really, he said that was the center of their conversation. The entire 5-minute ride home was about their mac and cheese carbonara that they were planning on splitting when they got back to the house. He said that he's picked them up in the past, not only these two girls, but Xana as well. And he said that in the past, they've talked about boys and drama and college life, but not this time around. It was just a very normal, innocent conversation about their food and how they were going to share it when they got home.
At 2:26 a.m., Kaylee starts to call Jack. Kaylee calls Jack 6 times between 2:26 a.m. and 2:44 a.m. From 2:44 to 2:52, Maddie calls Jack 3 times, and Kaylee makes a final call to Jack at 2:52 a.m.
They were on ends of getting back together. Kaylee talked to Jack the whole time she was here for that week and a half.
One of her last messages, she reached out to Jack and said, "Jack, get back to me." And he didn't. She goes, "We share a dog together," which they did. She's like, "You need to reach out to me." So
Please come over. Please come over. She was wanting Jack to come over.
Now, I wanted to include that because not only is, them calling Jack part of the timeline, the overall bigger picture, I just couldn't help but think of, what would have happened if Jack had answered and been like, fine, I'll head over. You know what I mean? It's crazy to think about. And, we never really went after a single person in this case. We speculated, of course, and we stated that it was just our opinion and our speculation. But, looking back, it's just going to be, it's just crazy to think about, like, what if he had come over there? What exactly would have happened? And John Doe, we had stated that your opinion's welcome in chat as long as you're respectful and you state that it's your opinion, but you just keep trolling chat. So I put you in timeout. If you want to comment again once you're not in timeout, feel free, but you're pretty much on your way out for trolling chat and complaining when no one is bashing you for your opinion. All right. So anyways, I do want to think about that for a second. What would have happened if Jack, went back there? And yeah, Caroline, for one, thank you for becoming a member. And for 2, I agree with you. And Jack probably would be dead too. I think there's definitely a good chance. And yeah, Raybird, it's just so sad to think about, now that we know what we know, and which is sort of what this is about, revisiting some things that mean a little bit different now that we have this affidavit. She said, I bet Jack wishes he would have answered his phone, and who knows what type of, guilt he'll have the rest of his life. So, we definitely send our prayers and our thoughts for everyone with survival guilt.
And Jack is just as distraught as we are.
DM and BF both made statements during interviews that indicated the occupants of the King Road residence were at home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms by approximately 4 a.m. This is with the exception of Kernodle, who received a DoorDash order at the residence at approximately 4 a.m.
We know it was there.
Suspect Vehicle 1 can be seen entering the area a 4th time. At approximately 4:04 a.m., it can be seen driving eastbound on King Road, stopping and turning around in front of 500 Queen Road, number 52, and then driving back westbound on King Road. When Suspect Vehicle 1 is in front of the King Road residence, it appeared it unsuccessfully attempted to park or turn around in the road. The vehicle then continued to the intersection of Queen Road and King Road, where it can be seen completing a 3-point turn and then driving eastbound again down Queen Road. DM stated she was awoken at approximately 4 a.m. by what she stated sounded like Goncalves playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms, which were located on the 3rd floor.
This was a brutal weapon. It sounds like it was a professional type weapon that couldn't break. And they weren't stab wounds. They were like large punctures.
A short time later, DM said she heard who she thought was Goncalves say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." A review of the records obtained from a forensic download of Kernodle's phone showed this could have been Kernodle, as the cellular phone indicated she was likely awake and using TikTok app at approximately 4:12 a.m. DM stated she looked out her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. DM stated she opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying from Kernodle's room. DM then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you."
Bruises and just, maybe hurt by the knife or whatever. She's getting stabbed. She's a tough kid.
There were stab wounds on the hands of at least one of the students that make it appear that it would be defensive wounds.
Good morning, CDT. Thanks for being here.
At approximately 4:17 a.m., a security camera located at 1112 King Road, a residence immediately to the northwest of 1122 King Road, picked up distorted audio of what sounded like voices or a whimper followed by a loud thud. A dog can be heard barking numerous times starting at 4:17 a.m.
Now, two things. One, I knew that audio was fake because they tried to say it was a doorbell camera. Here you can see it's not a doorbell camera, it's a mounted camera. So that should have told everybody right off the bat that that audio going around was fake. Two, revisiting these pictures from the media, just look at the girl's face on the right. I mean, this is the house that turned that audio in. So, just look at her face. I know this is a still frame. Who knows what exactly was happening? What if she was smiling and laughing a second prior, But this picture takes a totally different meaning now that we revisit it and look back at it, knowing that this is the house that turned in that audio.
The security camera is less than 50 feet from the west wall of Kernodle's bedroom. DM stated she opened her door for the third time after she heard crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the backsliding door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. DM did not state that she recognized the male. This leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene. Investigators found a latent shoe print. This is located during the second processing of the crime scene. The detected shoe print showed a diamond-shaped pattern just outside the door of DM's bedroom. This is consistent with DM's statement regarding the suspect's path of travel.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound. Fatal ones were to the chest area or the upper body area. There were multiple stab wounds, on them.
And that picture of the mattress was taken this weekend, I believe January 6th. So they just took out mattresses and pieces of furniture out of the house, assuming for processing. And good morning, Michelle. Thank you for being here.
Suspect Vehicle 1 is next seen departing the area of the King Road residence at approximately 4:20 a.m. at a high rate of speed. Suspect Vehicle 1 is next observed traveling southbound on Walenta Drive. Based on my knowledge of the area and review of the camera footage in the neighborhood that does not show Suspect Vehicle 1 during that time frame, I believe that Suspect Vehicle 1 likely exited the neighborhood at Palos River Drive and Conestoga Drive. Palos River Drive is at the southern edge of Moscow and proceeds into Whitman County, Washington. Eventually, the road leads to Pullman, Washington.
The door locks with the number code. Every time you open it, like I had to go around the house to get in the house because of the number code. So they either knew that or they just kind of went around and found the slider open.
The front door, I'm told by a neighbor who walked by that morning, was wide open around 8:39 a.m. 8:30 to 9 a.m. would have been a pretty good amount of time before police ever got the call that those students were dead inside.
Further review indicated that the 8458 phone utilized cellular resources on November 13, 2022 that are consistent with the 8458 phone leaving the area of the Kohberger residence at approximately 9 a.m. and traveling to Moscow, Idaho. Specifically, the 8458 phone utilized cellular resources that would provide coverage to the King Road residence between 9:12 a.m. and 9:21 a.m. The 8458 phone next utilized cellular resources that are consistent with the 8458 phone traveling back to the area of the Kohberger residence and arriving at the area at approximately 9:32 a.m.
So this is where it comes in that he went back to the scene, looking at his phone data, according to the affidavit, during the hours of the murders, during the time that he was circling the neighborhood and seen in his car on CCTV footage in the neighborhood. They've also indicated that during that time, his phone was off. So in the affidavit, it states that during the hours of the murder, his 84, whatever his number is, phone was shut off, wasn't connecting to any towers, etc. And they pretty much theorize that, you know, with their experience in law enforcement and other cases, most people will turn their phone off during and around the time of a crime so that it seems like, you know, they weren't there. Well, looking at his phone data, they did see that it did ping in those areas and have activity in those areas at 9 in the morning. So while he did turn it off when he went around there for, you know, the murder time, it does have his activity with that, the phone towers, etc., in the area in the morning. Now, I put in there that news clip that stated a neighbor saw the front door. And when I say the front door, that's the one with the parking lot, in my opinion, with the wreath, was wide open. And we also hear the chief, which he'll state in a couple minutes, that when they arrived at the scene, the door was wide open. So piece that into the timeline that we know as far as the affidavit, right? So 8:30 to 9, the media is reporting that a neighbor told them that door with the wreath was wide open. The chief follows that up. So that kind of corroborates that theory and that, you know, fact, I would say. So why was the door open? You know, Brian goes back in the area around 9:12-ish, right? So is that before or after the neighbor saw the door open? Because I know that they said 8:30 to 9, the neighbor saw the door open and Brian's there at 9:12. But all I could think is like, well, what if the neighbor's wrong? Like, what if the buffer is really like 8:30 to 9:30? They saw that door open. Either way, I just want to know your guys' opinion of how does that open door fit in as far as the timeline and him returning there. Do you know what I mean? And thank you, The Scoop with Barb, for the super chat. Great job putting this video together. I'm so glad you liked it. And it's still going too. But I just want to know your guys' thoughts. You know, that the door is seen open. Why was that door open? Where did he enter? You know, like I'm thinking it was in the back, either the balcony, because Bethany hears that noise upstairs. You know, she hears that first. She thought it was Kaylee playing with the dog. So did he climb the balcony and get in that way? Is it the slider door, the same door that he left out of, you know? Or, you know, like, why is that front door with the wreath open? Why is that being reported as open? I really need to know. And it's way too risky to think that he went back in the house and then left it open, right? Plus the neighbor's saying that she saw it around 8:30 to 9. So I don't know, guys. And we see a lot of visuals, and I think I might have included some through the investigation before the the arrest was made, that there's a lot of people, investigators, looking at the door frame and looking at that door specifically. I really want to know why that door was open, where he left from, etc. The door open is mentioned by the chief. So I've played it here on my channel before. I'm about to play it again, but yeah, it comes right out of his mouth. So that was in the first press conference. I believe it was the first press conference. But that's been a little detail that's kind of like skimmed over everyone's, I don't know, timeline this weekend. Ever since the affidavit went out, I haven't heard anybody mention like, okay, so that front door was seen open though around 8:39. he comes back around 9:12. Like, how does this all fit in?
They still, though, aren't releasing who called 911. Police were not called until noon, and they arrived to this home with the front door wide open.
I think it'll be released when the prosecution believes that we can release that. That may be at trial. That may be before then.
There's no damage to anything, and the door was still open when we got there.
So the door was still open when they got there. Why?
Or were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
I said that. I said, it's not real until the sheriff pulls up. And the sheriff showed up about 3 hours later.
Police spokesman Robbie Johnson confirmed detectives are investigating the manager's claims.
Definitely looking into any reports of a stalker or that type of behavior around any of the victims.
So was Brian the alleged stalker that was being rumored and talked about? A lot of you guys thought it was a red herring. It was something that I always kept on my list and my board as something very important to follow up on and make sure that it was a rumor. I never really thought it was a rumor. I know a lot of people were like, oh, well, people use that term too loosely, stalker. That's not something to kind of brush off, in my opinion, especially with a murder like this. I really, really thought like that was something. And it appears that he was stalking them. So it's just very crazy. All right, so now we're going to go into a visual of the crime scene synopsis. This will be pretty much me reading what the officers saw when they walked in, reading from the affidavit, and then I've just included visuals for it. So I hope you guys like it, and if you haven't hit like, please do so. Yeah, I feel he was cyber stalking the girls for some time, in my opinion, Tony says. I do too, and I'm very curious if that even occurred before he even moved to Washington. And I know this is probably old and late news now, but I didn't know until after we spoke last that Ted Bundy had gone to this Washington University that Brian decided to go to. And it's too much compared to everything else that we've talked about so far with this case and his, interest in the professor who knows BTK, etc. It's just too much when I found that out.
Officer Smith and I enter the King Road residence through the bottom floor door on the north side of the building. Officer Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Xana Kernodle's, hereafter Kernodle's, room. Just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body later identified as Kernodle's laying on the floor. Kernodle was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male later identified as Ethan Chapin, hereafter Chapin. Chapin also deceased. I then followed Officer Smith upstairs to the third floor of the residence. The third floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee Goncalves, hereafter Goncalves' room. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in a single bed in the room. Both Goncalves and Mogan were deceased with visible stab wounds. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Mogan's right side when viewed from the door. The sheath was later processed and had K-Bar USMC and the United States Marine Corps Eagle Globe and Anchor and Sigma stamped on the outside of it. Idaho State Lab later located a single source of a male DNA suspect profile left on the bottom snap of the knife sheath.
you know, how you would enter the house when you went there? Did you go through this sliding door that we're hearing about, or did you have to use a code to enter the house to visit Xana and Ethan?
There were 2 points of entry to the house. Most frequently, people used the door that was located on the basement, and then you took a set of stairs to get to the main floor.
And was it your experience that you would that you knew the code, or that people knew the code, or was it, you know, did you have to use the code to enter the house?
When I would go there, the code wouldn't be activated, so we could just open the door and get in.
So that was a friend claiming, you know, the code wouldn't be activated and they could just open the door and get in, which, you know, contradicts what Xana's father was saying, where he said you had to, you know, it would shut and lock on you. You had to walk around in the back to get in unless you knew the code. Apparently, you know, when he's there, the code was activated because that's what he was seeing. But here a friend is saying, like, we would just walk in, the code wouldn't be activated. So that's an issue. But where did Brian enter the place? Is this door that was left open even relevant, you know?
He was just your average guy. I met him through some friends, and they told me that he was a little weird, and he was a little socially awkward, I guess you could say. But he wasn't a bad guy. He needed a job, so I worked at a pizza shop at that time, and they were hiring. I said, yeah, he come on in and apply, and he did, and he got the job. So I worked with him for a little bit, but he was quiet.
What conversation like with him?
It was so long ago. It was like 2013, but he didn't have a girlfriend. I do remember that. And my wife went to school with him. They graduated together, and she doesn't remember him ever having a girlfriend, and I don't remember him ever having a girlfriend. And he didn't have many friends, so he like would do anything to fit in, and would do like, you know, he just wanted to be liked by everybody. But he wasn't a bad kid. Like, you know, he was all right. And I knew his sister. I went to school with his sister, and I knew his father worked for the school, and I believe his mother did too. But his family, they were all nice people, and you know, his dad was always really nice to me, very polite. I never thought that he would do something like that. Yeah, he did use drugs. That's how I really know him too. He was a big heroin addict, and so was I. I got 6 years clean now. I work in treatment and everything.
I just want to congratulate this guy for 6 years clean and working in treatment. And thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to my moderators and everyone who has hit like. Thanks.
But back then I was using, and so that's how I know for a fact he was using. I've got high with him a couple times and used with him, and I remember one night we went out and his car broke down and his dad had to come out, and he got pretty angry.
Now he talked about that story very briefly, and it never was like really elaborated on. The Fox News reporter said something along the effect of, you know, would like to speak with you again sometime. And I hope that they kind of go into more about this. So they're trying to get their fix. His car breaks down. His dad had to come get him. The fix never got filled. He gets super angry. I want to hear more about that. I want to know more about what this guy saw as far as Brian's anger. We already have other people stating who knew him growing up, etc., that he did have an anger problem. So I just want to hear a little bit more about that. This friend seemed very open and honest. I believed him like right off the bat when he started speaking. I don't know how you guys feel about him, but it almost seemed like he was a little bit too honest. Once you hear the rest of this, you might think so too. But either way, it was an interesting interview, and I hope they interview him again.
Because his car broke down and everything, and we couldn't get what we needed that night. And you know, I knew other people that dealt drugs, and we would deliver drugs to him a lot. And so that's when I heard about this case. I haven't heard from him in so long. And then I heard about this, and it said that he was going to college. I said, I haven't heard from him. I guess that's what he's been doing. He must have cleaned up. I know he was in and out of rehab a couple times, but he really did. He cleaned up and was going to college all these years.
I got to ask you one last question. We've heard from people that he had a track record of being inappropriate, borderline offensive to women. Did you ever see that in any of your interactions with him and interactions with women?
Not in my time knowing him. I've never seen him ever act like that towards women. I've never seen him come off that way ever towards anybody.
So I thought that that was an interesting interview. I want to hear more from him. I know you guys have seen what's going around, some old thread being shared that could possibly be Brian on it when he was younger, 2011. I forget what the website is called, but it's like a little blog area where they can talk. And he's discussing his mental health problems, if it's him. I know that some channels have dug into that. But it's very interesting if that is him, because that was in 2011, that blog, and he's discussing how he can't sleep, etc. And then here we have a friend who knew him 2 years later, 2013, and they're using very heavy drugs at the time. And it just makes me wonder, like, was him turning to those heavy drugs at that age, at that time, in a means to kind of silence whatever was going on in his head, if that blog is him? It was very detailed in issues of, mental health, etc. Sorry, had to sneeze. But I'm just curious, did he turn to heroin because he needed help sleeping? If that blog is truly him complaining about problems with sleep or whatever, it might make more sense to think of, oh, maybe that's why he turned to that. I don't know. Either way, it's very strange. Very strange. So this next part is that I wanted to go through with you guys. And I do have a few crime scene pics that I kind of want to revisit. Yes, Janice, I'm glad you understand what I was saying. Yes, self-medicating. Allison Faye said, I think that's him writing in the blog. It seems connected to things said by friends and neighbors. It was really interesting to look through. But like I said, it kind of sums up into him. For those who didn't see it, he's just speaking on his mental health issues and not being able to sleep. And allegedly that's why he was vegan, because it was supposed to help his health. So it doesn't really have anything to do with compassion for animals, which kind of makes sense because obviously this guy doesn't have much compassion. It was in a means to help his health that he went vegan. And now that is just speculation. Of course, we have nothing to say 100% that that was him in that vlog, but a lot of people are thinking it is. And good morning, Mrs. Kurt Cobain. It's so good to see you. Yes, I agree. I think they do have the guy. All right. So what I want to share now is him walking into the courtroom, and I slowed it down into slow speed because I just want to see, him and his reaction with his lawyer and to the judge. He turns into the courtroom and almost felt like he was like sort of like lizardish. I don't know if it's his eyes or what, but like he just reminds me, like in slow motion when he's walking, like of like a lizard. I don't know. But he just stares in the judge's direction. Like the first thing he does when he walks in the courtroom, I thought was odd. And again, this is slowed down. So when you see it in regular speed, it probably looks like absolutely nothing. But slowing it down, I was like, oh, that's creepy. And I just feel like his interaction with his lawyer is creepy too. His smile at her. You guys have seen the screenshot of the smile and the still frame of his creepy smile. When you see it in slow motion, it's even creepier. It looks so fake. And honestly, I think the lawyer is uncomfortable with his presence. Again, that's my opinion. I'm not a body language expert. I'm not an expert in general, and I know that his lawyer obviously has been in criminals' presence before, obviously. But I get the sense that like he gave her the heebie-jeebies when he sat down next to her. Like she sort of like shuffles in her chair. This little clip that I have kind of cut it off a little bit early, but if you see it in other clips, she like fixes her like suit jacket and like takes the glasses off her forehead or off her head and kind of like gets situated. But it could be seen as like she's just getting comfortable, or in my opinion, it was almost like he like sent chills up her spine. I don't know, guys. That's my opinion. I know you guys will probably disagree, but I just felt there was something there that was sort of strange. Yes, Jesse, we seen that. The op-ed that Brian's mother wrote in a column the day, what was that, in the 80s, that Bundy was executed. She wrote some column that, I mean, you could argue that it sounded like she was almost sympathizing with Bundy being executed. She tries to make it seem like she's just disgusted with society cheering and stuff, but it was just sort of it can be seen as maybe her being sympathizing with Bundy. Let me just read it because I have it right here. And thank you for bringing that up, Jesse. I know others have touched on it, but we haven't touched on it here. So it says, cheering the hearse. Perhaps one of the saddest commemorities on mankind was evident during the execution of Theodore Bundy. Mind you, she uses his full name. I just noticed that too, rereading this. Theodore Bundy. You know, not Ted Bundy, not even Bundy. She uses his full government name. While no sane, compassionate individual would excuse the atrocities committed by this man, neither would any sane individual applaud the passing of his funeral hearse. What have we become? Is this taking of human life acceptable when the state takes responsibility for it? And then that was her, it has her name. So she's very disturbed by people in Florida cheering the hearse as it went by. We know from video footage on that day that there were people outside the prison cheering with signs, you know what I mean? So that is written by his mother. So I want to leave that out there, something to kind of think about and remember. Exactly, Caroline. That's how I see it too. She said, using Theodore screams her deference. Sorry, mispronouncing that. All right, so continuing on, let's look at him in slow motion. Again, enters the courtroom, immediately locking eyes with the judge. Noteworthy, in my opinion. And yes, the judge was in there yet for someone who just commented that. You can look at the full clip. The judge was there, and even still, I said he was looking in the judge's direction. So whoever was over there, he was locking eyes with or interested in looking at. And again, the forced smile, I feel like his grin to his lawyer is very forced and pained. A lot of people zoomed in and saw him like clenching his jaw. Just very creepy. Look at him. Looks very like lizardy, reptilian to me. Yeah, there was no sound, grannies. It's just slow motion. So I didn't want it to like do the slow motion sound because that's never fun. But yeah, no, we're just watching his body language. So, you know, he sits down next to his lawyer and he doesn't look at her. Like, it's almost like he's forced to look at her. Like, he realizes like, oh, I should probably smile at her. Like, it's just not like a normal human's response. Like, you would think he would walk in, head nod, maybe a handshake or something to his lawyer. Maybe not. I don't know. I've never been in his position, so I don't know what they typically do. But I just felt like, yeah, he even looks at his lawyer snarky, in my opinion. I think he thinks that he's equal with the lawyer and with the judge. Like when I seen him being read the sentencing, and even when his lawyer was speaking for him, he's, you know, nodding his head and all that. And it's like, you realize that you're the criminal here, right? Like, you're not in a conference, like with a business conference with people, right? Like, it just seemed like he had way too much. He was way too comfortable, I guess. I don't know. He just looks way too confident. When he was being read, like all the charges and all that, it was too much for me to see. Lizard Bundy. Yeah, that's just my opinion. I just think this whole thing is just very interesting. Christy B said, oh my God, we can find evil things in everybody, I guess. I mean, to me, I know what creepy looks like, and I just feel like he's creepy. That's just my opinion. And of course, we overanalyze things here. So let's see it again. For Christy B, we're going to play it again. Yes, Granny. I hate to say it. If we didn't know what he did, would we still see him as creepy? Yes. I'm sorry, but I do. And the fact that a lot of people who have known him and did know him in the past are stating that they didn't see him with a girlfriend ever, I think that was the consensus around him. He was just a creepy individual for people. Otherwise, he would have had, at least one girlfriend. So this is just revisiting a crime scene pic. Members of Idaho State Police forensics team investigate Friday at a home where again, this is older, 4 university students were recently murdered. It looks like to me they are underneath the balcony. Is that where they're looking at, guys? I think they're standing underneath the balcony. His nose and 2 other people fit in the same shot. That's amazing. Dog, you're hilarious. I hope you're doing well and good morning over there in the West Coast. So are they underneath his, yeah, I have hooded eyes, so I don't think hooded eyes make you creepy. It just makes putting makeup on very difficult for a female. So is this underneath the whatchamacallit? The balcony that they're looking at, the windowsill? I'm just curious, like what might have been like dripping there or something, like what exactly they're looking at. Just revisiting some of these pictures is interesting to me. So there's that one. There's some other ones in here too. So this is significant. I know that we've seen this like all the time. Let's be kind in chat. Like, I don't like people being rude to people. I don't know if that's what's going on or if it's a joke, but I don't want to be distracted by rude comments. So if people are being rude, mods, please, delete the comment or whatever. CDT said, I do think it is very interesting to go back and look at the early photos. I agree. I knew you felt the same. Granny's watching said, any thoughts on the rumor of the sister being at the scene? We discussed it a little bit on CDT yesterday, and our thoughts were we just didn't think it was her. I would assume that it's probably an assistant or somebody to his lawyer, somebody who works for the defense team. I just don't foresee them wanting people related to Brian sharing DNA with Brian at the crime scene. So I know that it was a girl who looked like his sister. I just don't think it was his sister. I think it was just a look-alike. But alrighty, so this picture I feel is significant. I wrote down in my notes that, they're measuring the tire tracks and just, we looked at this before and we thought, oh, interesting. Well, now that we have the Carfax for his car, we've seen in the Carfax that he had recently replaced his tires. So I'm assuming he drove to Washington from his state of Pennsylvania. I'm trying to find the Carfax so I can just read the exact month that he did so. Of course, I can't find it. But either way, he replaced his tires within the last year, I believe. So when you replace your tires and you speed off, you're more prone to leave a tire mark. And we know from the affidavit that it stated that he was seen on CCTV footage around 4:20 a.m. speeding off. And then we seen obviously during the look of the crime scene. Sorry, guys, I'm looking for the exact date because I wanted the exact date. But I do know that it was in the last year he replaced his tires. So his tires are fairly new. They hadn't even driven across country yet. So when we see him with his father driving, that was like the first long trip, it seems, that he put on the new tires. So if he's here at the scene and he's speeding off, they're definitely, I think, is more likely that he left tire impressions just due to the fact that he did replace his tires very recently. Of course, can't find it. So, but either way, I put it on my community page. You guys can see the exact date. It's within the last year that he replaced those tires. So I think that that's noteworthy. And this picture definitely takes on a different meaning, knowing that he did speed away and that the tires were recent. So I thought that that was interesting to look at again. And then this one, it's just the press's view of them processing the crime scene. It looks like they are on the second floor in a bedroom. Now, this sort of gives me an indication also gives us an idea. Like, we've seen all these pictures that the press has taken of the crime scene being processed and just the house in general. It's been very interesting to see, you know, the mess in their house, the decorations in their house, line up, you know, which doors had the locks possibly, etc. Well, now I'm looking at this and knowing that Bryan was stalking them since August, possibly, knowing that he circled the neighborhood, you know, 3 times, and then the 4th time he decided to act on what he did. Was he circling around and around that morning because he's waiting for these lights to shut off? I mean, I have yet to see a curtain. There's a picture of Maddie's room with her boots in the window and the letter M. That one has a curtain. They were in Maddie's room, but I don't know if that curtain was closed. I don't know, you know, in my opinion, that house would be very easy to kind of just to stalk and realize, okay, they shut their lights off. So this sort of corroborates the idea that, you know, as he's driving by that morning, he waits for the lights to go off. So those are the visuals that I had put together. I was thinking, let's see, we've been an hour. What do I have? Okay, so the time frame for the murders pretty much were a 16-minute time frame. Is that a long time or is that not a long time, do you guys think? 4 people. It's crazy to think about, obviously. So yeah, 3:29 is when he's seen, when he starts to circle the neighborhood. So obviously if he goes, pretty much they say something along the lines of at 4:04 he parks or whatever. So, you know, pretty much a little over a half hour he had time to decide, like, should I do this, should I not do this? And he decided to go through with it. And it's crazy. So I want to go into more stuff, obviously, with this. There's just a lot to break down. I hope you guys like the stuff I put together. What I want to do is just play a little bit of court TV with you guys. Quick for one person, Tony said. Yeah, girls he could never obtain. Yeah, how did he do all that in 15 minutes? We can get into more of like the details of what took place too in the future. Okay, Christy B, I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't think that we've shamed anybody. And thank you, Sausage Toes. I like that name. I like the stuff you're putting out. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Evil CJ. Hungry Helmet said that's a long time in my opinion. I kind of thought so. Just because, you know, like once he got in there, was it right off the bat? Was he in a room kind of listening and creeping around? It's just, you know, a lot of people were saying that this was a blitz kill too. So the experts were stating that. Okay, good. I'm glad you guys don't agree. Same. I don't know what's going on, Seattle Ryan. I'm lost too. All right, so let's go to Court TV.
University of Idaho students were brutally murdered, surveillance cameras in the neighborhood captured crucial video which led to the arrest of the suspect. That video shows a white Hyundai Elantra passing by the victim's home several times before parking. Tonight, we return to the scene of the crime to retrace the path to gain a clearer understanding of how and when the killer entered the home.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us here on Closing Arguments. I want to begin tonight by talking about evidence. And let's begin with what many people consider the gold standard in criminal cases, DNA. DNA is great evidence, but it does have some limitations. We know DNA can put a suspect, a criminal, at the scene of a crime, but it's always circumstantial evidence. It doesn't prove the case. It's not direct evidence of the crime, but you can put that criminal at the scene of the crime. So it's very powerful, but has limitations. Because if you obtain DNA at the scene of a crime and you have it on a murder weapon or some blood that's on the ground, whatever form you have it in, that's fantastic. But you've got to find the source. So you have to compare it to some other DNA. And if the suspect you're looking for is not in the DNA database, there'll be no match. There's no match. If that suspect hasn't been arrested before, hasn't put their DNA into the system or had their DNA placed into the system, then you've got DNA, but you've got no match. So, you've got so many unsolved cases like that. You have the DNA, but the person's never been caught doing anything and they're not on 23andMe. That's why you need a suspect, someone to compare the DNA to. So you need other evidence. So I said, DNA is great, but has its limitations in solving a crime. Now, cell phones. These days, great evidence, digital footprints, what people are saying and doing and texting on their cell phones, amazing insight into the mind of a suspect, into the mind of a criminal. You know what they're thinking, what they're doing, what they're saying. You can also track where they are if they have their cell phone. But there are some limitations. First thing is you could turn your cell phone off. All right, you're gonna go commit a crime. I'm gonna turn it off. I'm not gonna have it on when I go to commit this crime. That way, they'll never track me there. Or you can leave your cell phone at home. We had a criminal defendant in a death penalty.
Yeah, I have to pause it and agree with this comment. And this is our opinion just because we've studied the case very closely. And we have a playlist on both of our channels regarding the Scott Peterson case. But she said this case already has more circumstantial evidence and DNA evidence than the Scott Peterson case, in my opinion. And that Scott Peterson case came out right when people started, tracking the data from cell phones and the forensic from, cell phones and laptops. And it was back then, early on, it wasn't understood as well by the jury. Nowadays, the jury is going to see bryankohberger's pings, and this means that. During the time of the murders, it appears he wasn't connecting to towers. He shut off his phone, in our opinion. That's what criminals do when they're in the scene of a crime and blah, blah, blah. They want to make it seem like they're not there. So all these things that investigators use, and we read in the affidavit, pretty much say that, that the data, and remember, Kaylee's parents said very early on, they have a lot of evidence. A lot of it is digital evidence. So it's going to be very interesting to see also the information that they gathered from his computer and the computer tower that they took from his place. So, and help me out, guys. What was he hoping to do in law enforcement? Was he just, did I read it right that he was studying and wanting to become an expert in the digital data in cases. Like, was I understanding that? I thought I had heard something along the lines of he was interested in specializing in helping law enforcement with the digital aspect of cases. So if that's true, which I think that that's what it was saying, that's very ironic considering the fact that cloud forensics. Okay, thank you, Janice Smith. That's very ironic considering it seems like that's what's gonna convict him in a way. Let's carry on. Court TV. I know you guys like Vinny as much as me, so let's watch.
Penalty case, who did that? Left his cell phone at home and used that as his alibi. Investigators found his burner phone, though. He was convicted. But again, cell phones, absolutely amazing evidence, but has some limitation. How about surveillance cameras? There are no buts about cameras, none. And the reason I say that is the camera shows you what it shows you. You can see it happen. If there's a surveillance camera that shows and records the crime, that is direct evidence. Better than an eyewitness. Better than an eyewitness, because you don't have to, you don't have to rely upon someone's memory. You just roll the video. Take a look. Who is it? What does it show? What did they do? Where did they go? When were they there? Fantastic evidence when you have it. Now, in some cases, it may not be the direct evidence of the case because it may not show you the crime itself. But it may show you where someone is at a particular time, or where a car is, where someone is walking, when they were walking. Just like DNA, surveillance video can place you at or near the scene of the crime at the time of the crime. The great thing about surveillance video comes with a timestamp as well. DNA, not so much. Now, in this case, in Idaho, investigators have put all of these different types of evidence together and pieced it together and revealed it to us and to the defendant, the probable cause affidavit that outlined part of their case, the evidence that they believe proves that this defendant committed a quadruple murder in Moscow, Idaho on November 13th. Videos, cell phone, DNA, timestamps, very, very specific timestamps. And Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter took that probable cause affidavit, put it all together, and lays out the prosecution's timeline.
The family of the victims and millions around the country have frantically searched for clues about what happened on the night Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle were brutally murdered.
On most vacations, you take a trip. But in Israel, you'll take a journey you'll never forget. Here, you'll experience things so extraordinary.
The probable cause affidavit provides some answers. It lays out a timeline of what prosecutors say happened during those early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. At 2 a.m., all the roommates are home after a night out. Kernodle's boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, is also at the house. The address is 1122 King Road. At 2:47 a.m., bryankohberger's cell phone allegedly shows he's traveling south through Pullman, Washington. And right then, the phone stops reporting to the cell network. The affidavit states police obtained numerous surveillance videos from homes and businesses that capture a white sedan on November 13th. It's 3:26 a.m. when video captures what police...
First off, I need to pause it. Thank you so much, Jesse, for gifting those memberships. I really appreciate that. And thank you all for your support today. I really appreciate you guys all being here. It means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
Say is Kohberger's 2015 white Hyundai Elantra traveling westbound on Indian Hills Drive. This is 5 minutes from the victim's home. Starting at 3:29 a.m., home surveillance videos caught multiple sightings of that same car passing through the King Road neighborhood. Around 4 a.m. is when surviving roommate Dylan Mortensen wakes up to the sounds of what she believes is Kaylee Gonsalves in the room directly above her playing with her dog. Dylan says a short time later she heard who she thought was Kaylee say, "There's someone here." Dylan looks out the door of her bedroom and doesn't see anyone.
So when we hear there's somebody here, I believe, in my opinion, that was Kernodle. I think that was Xana. I think that they're taking Dylan's statement in her police interview, and they're obviously quoting her, you know, but as they follow up their own investigation, they've discovered, well, we noticed that it was Xana was on her phone on TikTok at 4:12. So I believe Xana got her food around 4, like they said. She's eating it. She's eating her food. She's on TikTok. She's hanging out. I think it's very possible that Ethan was asleep. You know, they were out partying prior. They'd gotten home around 1:45. You know, maybe they spent some time together, the couple, and he passes out. She wants to get food. The bag that we see from Jack in the Box looks like a single order to me. I get DoorDash a lot. I hate to admit it. But it just looked like it was like a single order. So I don't know if Ethan was up. I don't know if he was eating. Maybe they shared something. Maybe there was something in there for him. Just to me, it looked like it was for one. If that's the DoorDash bag. They have not come out and said, yep, this is it. I think so too, Zoe. She says 16 minutes is a long time, especially on a treadmill. Yeah, that's a good way to kind of think about it in your head. And not only that, if you guys have ever been through something that is like something happens in slow motion for you, 16 minutes can seem like a long time. And I hate thinking about the fact that Dylan heard crying and whimpering. You know, we'd heard from Steve that it was quick and nobody suffered. Well, I don't think that that's true. Not after everything that we've heard. I don't know if everybody didn't suffer, sadly. But, you know, it's just, I don't know if Xana got up to throw out her food when she thought she heard something. And while she's in the kitchen, because remember, that's the kitchen area is right near her room, right near the stairs that go up to the upstairs. So did she hear something and she goes running back to Ethan? There's somebody here. And then maybe Ethan's kind of groggy, waking up at that point. Yeah, Nacho Girl said an earthquake feels like forever. Yeah, Steve also said there was a brawl. He said exact words was there was a hell of a battle going on down there. So maybe when Xana wakes up, or when Xana says there's somebody here, Ethan kind of gets up. Again, we have a whole redacted page. I know that Brian Enton said that they told him that that wasn't really anything. It was just a redacted page with nothing of interest that we didn't see. I don't agree there. I'm not there yet. And again, we've seen law enforcement already thus far tell us one thing, and then we find out it wasn't that. And they're doing it for investigation purposes and to protect the integrity of the investigation. So when they talked about finding Xana, and we read through it for those who just joined with visuals, when they read through about finding the bodies, and it goes blank after Ethan's mentioned as far as, you know, he had an edged weapon wound that was fatal, etc. I just feel like redacted means redacted, and it's not because there was a blank page. Like, I just feel like there's more to that, and that's just my opinion. We'll find out in time. And good morning, allegedly, with Brittany J. It's good to see you.
At 4:04 a.m., Kohberger's vehicle returns to this area for the fourth time. It turns on Queen Street here, moving eastbound past the crime scene at this.
And I do have to pause that because Alicia said, I don't think Steve is correct on there being a battle. And that's the thing, guys. We don't know, like, we did hear that they said that when they read the affidavit, they found out new stuff too. So they don't know that much more, I don't think. So it could just be a rumor, or it could just be him misunderstanding things. So maybe there wasn't a battle going on. We do know from the coroner and from the police, they've said themselves that there were, I think I have the clip played twice. Some had defensive wounds. At least one of them had defensive wounds. Both quotes have been used. So was the battle going on Xana? And actually Ethan was just in a state of, you know, he was just vulnerable because he was asleep, you know? We don't really know those details yet. I think so too, Patsy. She said, I think it's redacted for our own good. I do too. Yeah, defense wounds. Could you know, somebody was fighting, because we have more than one corroborated source stating so, that we're there at the scene.
Direction. Past these apartment complexes, police say surveillance video picks up that white car making a turn. Then the vehicle heads back this direction towards the crime scene. At 4:12 a.m., Xana is using the TikTok app on her phone. At an unknown time, Dylan Mortensen hears what she believes to be crying coming from Xana Kernodle's bedroom. She opens her bedroom door for a second time, sees nothing, but hears a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." At about 4:17 a.m., a security camera from this residence picks up distorted audio of what sounds like voices or a whimper, a loud thud, and a dog barking. The affidavit states that at some point, Dylan opens her door for a third time to look because she hears crying. This time, she sees a man in black clothing with a mask covering his mouth and nose. It's 4:20 a.m. when surveillance video again allegedly captures Kohberger's vehicle. This time, it's seen leaving the area driving away at a high speed.
They have this timeline down. It seems investigators have put this all together. You need to do it in this case. You absolutely need to. And it looks like they are there. If everything that's in that affidavit, they can bring inside that courtroom. Right now, let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter, who joins us tonight outside of the crime scene. She's in Moscow, Idaho tonight. Chanley, great job putting all that together. My understanding is there was some more action today at the house behind you, the scene of these 4 murders.
This report came out over the weekend, I believe a day ago, for those who just joined us and are wondering. Yes, a day ago, it says right here. So we had shown what they were removing earlier in the stream. For those who didn't see it, mattresses and furniture. You can actually see a bit of blood stain, it appears. We shared those. So that was on the 6th of January. They started taking out some mattresses, etc. Another thing, since we're speaking on mattresses, that we learned through the affidavit was that Maddie's, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, Maddie's bed was only a single. So if they're in there together, another thing that was brought up by a friend of mine when I sent him the 360 tour of the house, something he had said was, these bedrooms are very small. So I never even thought about like the size of the room, and just thinking about, you know, kind of being cornered by somebody in a room like that. I mean, there really probably wasn't much room for Xana to fight back. It was very much cornered, and no exit too. Because remember, they've added on this property. So it's a very unique layout and setup. And, you know, the windows too. I mean, it's just terrible to think about him going through there, and it's sort of like a maze in itself. Thank God he left that footprint. Just crazy to think about.
What was going on?
Yeah, Vinny, we arrived here. We were going to compile some new video and content for your show this evening, and all of a sudden, about half a dozen vehicles, mostly pickup trucks, showed up right here where I'm standing. They took down the crime scene tape, and then one by one meticulously pulled into this driveway behind me. Right now, there's the private security guard company guarding the house, but here's a video of what they were doing. We observed them putting in, the first things, these mattresses into the back of the pickup trucks, taking out bags of potential evidence like that. You see them putting into the back of the trucks, and also box.
Now, for those who followed the Watts case, you know, we'd spoken how when they brought out stuff from the bedding, they put it in plastic bags. And the forensic expert and analyst, Joseph Scott Morgan, commented on the Watts case when he'd seen a footage of that and said, for one, you never do that with evidence. You don't bring it out in plastic. Plastic is never good for biohazard material, etc. It sweats and it's just not breathable. So yes, House Huddle again with the plastic bags. Now I don't know if this is the defense team. Okay, crazy crime chick, I hope you and the little ones have a good day today. I just called your little one a little one and she's like 13. Either way, hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you so much for being here this early. And if you guys haven't checked out Crazy Crime Chick's channel, definitely check it out. I know she's studying this case too, and she does good analysis. So yes, it should be paper bags. Thank you, for noticing, guys. It's just, I don't know if this is the defense team or what, but they're bringing out evidence in plastic bags, which is very interesting to see. And I wonder if Joseph Scott Morgan will comment again on this case with that aspect like he did for the Watts one. Let's see.
Private security guard company guarding the house, but here's a video of what they were doing. We observed them putting in the first things, these mattresses into the back of the pickup trucks, taking out bags of potential evidence like that. You see them putting into the back of the trucks, and also boxes, as well as wrapped items. You know, they would take brown paper material, wrap items that look kind of like stools or side tables or nightstands, that kind of thing, trying to cover some of the evidence up. Potentially, maybe there could be some biological blood type, what we presume maybe to be some blood on some of this type of evidence that they were trying to shield it. There's a red cover on that piece of item you see there, shield it from the media standing around the border of the crime scene. They spent several minutes here. I'd probably say around 30 minutes going in and out of the home before they pulled off here, where we could get a better look at kind of what they were putting in the trunk there in that video as they drove past me here. But it's interesting. They're mostly the Idaho State Police investigators. These are some of the same familiar faces I've been seeing here at this crime scene, Vinny, for weeks. When we were here back on week 1 of this investigation, I was noticing especially this investigator in the blue shirt and some of these familiar faces here again today. And this is again activity here at this home after they halted the remediation, the cleanup of this crime scene a week ago today on defense motion, and the judge entering an order preserving this crime scene to at least February 1st. That was a new document unsealed today that we learned about. And so now it's interesting to see the investigators coming back and collecting more items here at the scene when they have not been here, Vinny, for quite a while, especially after the arrest.
So, but the defense has been inside that home, right? The defense and their investigator?
That's right. When we were here on the ground, I believe it was Tuesday, the defense attorney, the court-appointed defense attorney, public defender from Kootenai County, Ann Taylor, was here. She went into this home for quite a while. She had a defense investigator with her who spent most of the day here inside the home. So again, the court granting them the right to stop this, to preserve the scene. So they had the opportunity to come in here, do their own investigation, preserve this so that could be complete and preserve the defendant's rights. And so they have been here even before Kohberger was actually back in the state, Vinny.
And one final follow-up on that. So is it clear today whether this was the removal of personal items to be, or the remediation, and they're going to clean it out for the owner to perhaps try to relet or do whatever they're going to do with this house?
That's was one of my initial thoughts. But if you remember last Friday when the remediation or the cleanup crew was here at the home, it was a private company. These are the actual investigators. These are these crime scene investigators who were here day one, taking evidence, dusting fingerprints with the CSI crew, Vinny. So this seems like this was evidence, potential evidence taken, not just cleanup. And if we look at the, there is the mattress cover, like a white fitted sheet over the mattress, but you can see darker spots on there. Maybe this is the actual mattress. We don't know for sure, but it would be, I would think, this private company that was just for the cleanup and removing of personal items. But these are the actual people who've been there taking evidence out of the house. So that was interesting, Vinny.
Fascinating.
So I'm curious if these were the beds that they were killed on, why it took so long for them to be taken away. But I guess maybe, there's always a rhyme and a reason for everything that they're doing that we just don't know about. Adam asked if some of the victim, if I thought it was too early, or do you think it was a mistake that some of the victims were cremated very early on? It's hard to say. I don't want to, it's a tough subject, because obviously it's somebody's loved one and family member, and they just want to lay them to rest how they want to lay them to rest. Just studying true crime, just studying all these other cases where they have exhumed bodies and they've exhumed them 10 years down the road. Some of them were 2 years down the road, etc. I think that I don't think that I would have if I were them, because I would want, honestly, a lot of families don't even let them exhume the bodies. They can say no. But I want to make sure that they have the killer behind bars. So I don't know. It could be a mistake. It could be a mistake. It's hard to say right now. It really is hard to say. Obviously, they've taken pictures, they've taken videos, they have evidence that they need. They've taken the forensic fingernail clippings and all that. So they have a lot. Drew Peterson, if you guys have ever seen the case, The Staircase, they exhumed somebody it was 10 plus years, right? And the body was in such good condition still that it was beneficial for that case. That case ended in a plea deal. Hopefully I don't want Brian to get a plea deal. We need this to go to trial so that we can see all the evidence for sure, because plea deals preclude that. We've seen that in other cases. Exactly. You can't exhume cremation. Sadly. Yeah, it's like one done deal. But we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they have enough where it's not going to matter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say that it was a mistake because I just don't know. We just don't know. Like, it seems like they have a lot of good stuff. Yeah, people are not wanting a plea deal. Yeah, how can you offer a plea deal to someone who killed 4 people? I agree. Well, and same with the Watts. How was he offered a plea deal? Well, I think we know the answer to that, but that's another day. All right, CDT's going to speed clean because her parents are stopping by. I understand that. All right, let's finish this up, guys, and then I'll continue on and let you guys go on. If you haven't hit like, please do so. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you here and subscribe. For those who are in chat, Alex and CDT, if you're going live, let us know so we can go over there after or later in the day, because I moderate for both those channels, and I love to continue our discussions there.
Fascinating. All right, Charlie Painter, stand by. Let's bring in our investigator joining us tonight in Madison, Mississippi, retired FBI agent, expertise in electronic surveillance, aerial surveillance, and cyber investigations. Jose Orench is with us. Jose, great to see you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. What's your take on what was happening today at the house with the Idaho State Police there removing, it seemed like, mattresses, headboards, etc.?
Hi, Vinny, and thank you for having me. You know, it's kind of hard to, or not hard, but it's something you don't really want to speculate on what they're doing. But my take on it would be that in the investigation that they're conducting, they may have found additional evidence, whether it's through interviews or other technical sources of information, that have led them to believe that there is additional evidence that is still in the rooms that they need to go through to follow up on the leads that they've developed so far in your additional leads that they have developed in the investigation.
So let's talk about the timeline that investigators have put together here now as well. It seems like very specific, a lot of timestamps. They're using information from the cell phones. They're using surveillance video, putting it all together. To me, in the time that I've been covering trials, this is the biggest change in the world of investigations, is that everything seems so much more precise, and it seems like investigators are getting a better idea of where and when suspects are because of this new type of evidence.
Yeah, that's correct. So after reviewing the affidavit, what I did was I kind of broke it down into 7 investigative milestones, or you know, in important different chain of events, things that the investigators came up with in order to develop that probable cause affidavit. Number 1, they did the initial interviews conducted at the location at the crime scene, and that initial interview allows them to establish a timeline and more or less narrow down when they think the murders occurred. Subsequent to obtaining that information, now that they have a timeline, they narrow down a time frame of what kind of video footage they would be interested in, and that's when they do their video canvas, which is done to corroborate timelines and to generate new leads. That was probably the most time-consuming, would be my guess, of part of this investigation, depending on how wide that footprint of video cameras that they canvassed was. When you're first looking at video cameras from nearby areas of a crime scene, you don't know what you're looking for. So everything has to be reviewed in real time. And this takes up a lot of law enforcement resources. Once they narrow down the interest in this white Elantra, that makes things a little quicker because there is software that will allow you to, speed up through cameras and speed up time to get to points where parts or this entire vehicle is seen on the cameras. So that was step 2. Number 3 is once they've identified that white Elantra, they were able to locate the vehicle at the apartments at Washington State University, and that allowed them to identify the owner. Once the owner of that vehicle was identified, they were able to determine that this owner matched the description of what that the eyewitness gave of the person they saw walking through the house that night.
Jose, let me just cut you off there for 1 second, Jose. I got to sneak in a quick break, and then we'll hear the rest of your analysis. This is fascinating. Appreciate it. Jose Arenz staying with us. Chanley Painter still in Moscow. Plus, coming up next hour.
Thanks for being here, everybody.
Welcome back. We're still going through this probable cause affidavit. Incredible information in here. Let's go straight out to Chanley Painter, who's in Moscow, Idaho, outside of the crime scene tonight. Chanley, we learned a lot in this affidavit about the movements of the suspect vehicle just before the murders.
We really did. The authorities collecting surveillance video in this neighborhood where I'm standing right now surrounding this crime scene. They call it the King Street neighborhood. And they denote the movements of that white Hyundai Elantra they've allegedly connected to bryankohberger and his cell phone movements at 3:29 a.m. the morning of November 13th. So this is what the affidavit says. The sightings on these multiple camera videos in this neighborhood show what they call suspect vehicle 1, making an initial 3 passes by this house, 1122 King Road, and then leave via Walenta Drive. Here's a map. Now, we don't know how he actually arrived here to King and Queen Road you see there, whether it's by Walenta Drive, the way he left, according to this affidavit, or Taylor Avenue, where the University of Idaho campus borders. But this gives you a depiction of what this King and Queen Road would look like and how he would pass through in front of this crime scene home into the apartments, turn around at the dead end, and come back. But that's what we learned, that there were 3 passes starting at 3:29 a.m., Vinny, before the affidavit says that he actually would go into this home. Here's video of a car passing the home where I'm standing. This is that road right in front of the house here that would go eastbound on Queen Road, even though this address is King Road. It's a little confusing there, but this is eastbound towards the dead-end apartment buildings here, where he would have then turned around and come back down. But that's a view from this home to the road in front of it with the car passing by in the front. Here's inside the vehicle view. So this is us driving from King Road to Queen Road. And again, on the right side, you will start to see the crime scene come up on the right side. So this is the view driving eastbound on Queen Road towards the dead-end apartment buildings. And on the right, you're going to see here the crime scene home. This is all the investigators' vehicles that were here earlier today, collecting those mattresses and boxes. And he would continue on, of course, going straight to turn around to come back. But that's a view of what passing by this home would be. And then again, this is video collected from these neighboring homes in this area, pinpointing this white Hyundai Elantra that they say bryankohberger was driving starting at 3:29 a.m., making these passing drive-bys, Vinny.
Quick question, because I don't want to get to the rest of this as well. As you drive past and you see those windows, which floors are that? Which bedrooms do you see as you're doing that pass by? Because if this car is casing the joint to see if anyone's awake, whose windows are you seeing?
Absolutely. So there's one way in and one way out of this road. So this is the only way in to this home, what you're looking at right now. Again, moving eastbound on Queen Road, you're going to see the house come up on the right side here. And what you're going to see is you're going to see first the front door of the home. It's going to be hard because there's going to be all the law enforcement vehicles in front of the home, but you have the first floor with the front door where they're going in and out, and that would be one of the roommates, Bethany, on that floor. The second floor, if we have the front of the home, the second floor, the right window on the second floor would be Xana Kernodle's room, where Xana and Ethan would be. The left second floor window. I could even show you here behind me. You can see it. It's dark here on the second floor. That is the living room area of this home, where the first floor steps would come up, the living room area. On the back side of the second floor room, this living room area would be Dylan Mortenson's room on the second floor, Vinny. That gives you perspective. And then moving on up, of course, above this camera angle where I am would be the third floor, where Kaylee Gonzalez and Maddie Mogan would be at that time that car was passing by this home.
Absolutely. I want to show the folks at home some maps because I know you some more video to show us. Let's take a look at this map. This is, again, you see the crime scene. Let's zoom in on that crime scene. That's the home. And Shanley keeps talking about Queen Road. So at 4:04 in the morning, there's a fourth time that the suspect vehicle goes down Queen Road and then sort of turns around in front of that apartment complex, 500 Queen Road. Then you see it start to move forward and then stops. And they think it's either attempting to park or make some sort of a maneuver right in front of the car on Queen Road. But then it starts to move again and goes towards the intersection of King and Queen Road. And that's where it makes one of those 3-point turns, a K-turn. It turns around in that.
So the camera on that house that caught the audio is so obvious. I mean, anyone can see it. So it's just so mind-boggling that they have him on this, you know, all these footages and all that, driving around the neighborhood. Why do you guys think it took so long for us to get a vehicle description? Because they came out with the vehicle description later, and obviously they had this footage prior to that description being given to the public. I'm just curious, you know, what took so long, why they waited so long. Although they probably already had their sights on Brian, in my opinion, at that point. And maybe honing in on their subject. So they waited to release that information, maybe. What are your guys' thoughts there? Also, I'm confused with, you know, him driving around the neighborhood so often and so much that night that how did he miss Xana's room light possibly being on because she was up on TikTok and eating DoorDash? Was her light off and he just didn't see it? Or was it to the point where he had just decided, I'm going in there, I don't care? That's what I'm curious on. So Jay said, I think they are holding it back from telling the public at that point, right? And I mean, the public information officer says so confidently when they did come out with it, we know it was there. So, you know, they knew very early on that there was a white car around that area that was suspicious. Sleuths Investigates said, I agree, ATS. I wonder if they, sorry, chat's going quick. I wonder if they waited till the 7th of December as a checkmate to him to see if he'd make any sudden moves. They needed DNA, right? So you think they were waiting for DNA to be processed to come back first and all that. And good morning, Pamela. She said he just didn't care, in my opinion. Right. He just made up his mind that that was going to be the night. And here's the other thing that kind of makes things interesting. Kaylee wasn't supposed to be there. She came back to show off her new car, her Range Rover. You know, was he tipped off by maybe her social media stating I'm back in town? Or I don't know if she did have a post like that. I'm just wondering, you know, of all nights for him to decide that that was the night and come to find out she wasn't even supposed to be there, but had decided to come back. It's just, you know, we don't know exactly who the target was, but if it was Kaylee, did that come into play as far as him deciding that it was going to be that night and that's the night he needed to do it? Just something to think about, because she was going to be leaving the area soon. She was going to go to Europe. She had gotten an internship. She was going to be leaving the state possibly, remember? So all this stuff, I don't know how much of it she put on social media and the public was able to kind of watch her moves and listen to what her plans were. But we've seen in other cases where people have cyber stalked people and knew their whereabouts and they tagged themselves here and all that. So it was easier for the perpetrator to stalk. So I don't know. It'll all be interesting to find out exactly who the target was, how he decided that that was the night to do it, where all this comes into play. Ethan not supposed to be there because he doesn't even live there. Kaylee wasn't supposed to be there because she was just coming back visiting.
It was going to be Thanksgiving break soon. It's just crazy to think about all these things that have taken place and in the timeline and what we know now. And to see that he had been stalking so often and gone in that neighborhood, you know, circling it 3 to 4 times. It's like, why was that the night that he decided to do that?
At intersection and then heads back east on Queen Road, again towards the home. Now, Chanley, I know you put together some video showing all of this because this is significant. This is 404. This is when the car makes its final pass, and then it's time to break into the home and commit a murder.
Exactly. So again, we started at 3:29 a.m. So this is more than 30 minutes later, 3 passes by this home later. This is the 4th time, like you said, 4:04 a.m. again, making its way east on Queen Road one more time. This is the only way into this area. You see the crime scene to the right. He, according to this affidavit, continues on straight past these apartment buildings on the right and would make it's very narrow road. As you can see, I've spoke to most of these neighbors that live here on this road, this apartment complex. You would have to go all the way towards the end of this narrow road before you could turn around. It's going to be apartment number 52, according to the affidavit. In this area, this wider circle area where that white Hyundai Elantra turned around, according to this affidavit, and then goes back down the hill west on Queen Road, where he passes the crime scene one more time. It would have been on his left side, his driver's side.
I'm just going to pause this real quick. So Alex, that she said Kaylee was sharing her location on Be Real for sure the day of. Is that the picture? I don't know if you were in the stream earlier that I had shared, because I was trying to map out when that picture was taken. She's in like the blue or the black sleeveless, and she's got her hair pulled back, and she's in front of her vanity taking the selfie, and it says Moscow, Idaho underneath. That was taken that night, to my understanding, because I thought so, but then I second guessed it. So I didn't specify the date, but I did include it in the beginning of the timeline in the visuals that I shared, because I really was under the impression that that was that night. So was that from that night that the Be Real? Yeah, the girls were very public on their social medias. Yes, absolutely. And somebody had brought up something about vehicles in the driveway. That's another thing that I didn't even consider until now. So Kaylee has a new vehicle, you know, it's a Range Rover. No one would have really known that vehicle in the area because it was new. She just brought it to town. So interesting to think about somebody who's stalking the house and who's going to take on a very risky criminal activity, entering the house with all those people in it. He also, you know, he must have known that that was her vehicle because it was brand new. Like, how did he not think that that was maybe somebody else's vehicle and somebody else was in the house? You know what I mean? He must have known that that was her new vehicle, I would say. That's just my opinion. Just thinking about it all, you know, if he's stalking the house and there's a Range Rover there, for somebody who's a stalker, you'd think like, oh, I don't recognize this car. But he probably already knew that that was her new car and that she was back in town showing it off. So it wasn't anything that alerted him or deterred him from committing the crime. So Alex, yes, in the mirror. So that selfie that she took, I'm glad I included that then. I put it in the beginning of the stream right around the time that Xana's father said he spoke to Xana around midnight. So Xana's father speaks to her around midnight, his daughter. And then we see Kaylee post a selfie that same day, and it showed her location, Moscow, Idaho. So now we know for sure that, you know, she was sharing her locations on social media. So it's just crazy to think all that, you know, it's unfortunate that somebody who's watching her social media knowing she's back in town, if she's the target, again, a lot of people do think that. Okay, that was her pic on Instagram, but it was posted that day, guys. And I believe she put it on Be Real too, or also. Yeah, if he's following them on social media, I'm sure she posted pics of her new car, in my opinion. For sure, I think so too. And we'll see all this if it comes out in trial. They're going to paint a huge picture, bigger picture than we've painted today.
of the car at that time. And according to the affidavit, that's when he sort of fails to either turn around, attempts to kind of park or turn around there right in front of the home. Remember those tire marks, Vinny, on this road that I'm showing you? They would be about where that red car is.
People are asking what Be Real is. It's just a new form of social media, I guess. I don't know. I'm not on it, but we studied it a little bit in the Kylie Rodney death investigation where they were using it there. It's pretty much you post a picture and it gives like the time you were there taking the selfie, and it just gives like a lot of detail, your location and all that. So thank you, Alex. Be Real is a social media app that doesn't use filters and stuff. So it's just straight up. You can't like modify it. It's just, that's why it's called Be Real.
Front in this video where those tire marks were. So he would continue down. He would pass it after this failed attempt to park or turn around in front of the home, and then see the intersection further down where King and Queen meet. He does the 3-point turn there before heading back to this home where, according to this affidavit, committed these murders within about 16 minutes before speeding off at 4:20 a.m. this direction out Valencia Road.
So let me ask you, Chanley, at 4:04, when all this is happening, what we're showing the folks right now, what's going on inside the house?
At 4:04, well, around 4 a.m., according to the affidavit, there was a DoorDash food delivery delivered to the home, and that was ordered by Xana Kernodle, the second floor room. She ordered food. I believe it was like Jack in the Box, according to some photos we've seen inside the home, possibly, not for sure, but she orders food. So there's a DoorDash driver here that delivers food, and I'm presuming to this front door of the home from 4 a.m. We also know about.
Now, it's going to be very interesting if this goes to trial. They're going to show whatever cameras they have for the girls being dropped off by their ride share. So that was at what, 156? So they get dropped off. Whereas, Brian's car allegedly isn't in the area yet. It gets there at what, 3:29, starts circling. So then we're going to see the DoorDash person's testimony, possibly, or whatever they had to say in their interview. What did that DoorDash person see? Because if the DoorDash person is in that neighborhood at that time, which we know, did he see a white Elantra circling? You know what I mean? So these streets are not wide at all. This is a very compact area. I think a car's headlights can be seen from one street, but reflecting all around, it looks like. So I'm curious what the DoorDash driver will have to say. I'm sure that they're protecting his statements right now. And I really appreciate you guys giving me the kind compliments in chat. I see them, so don't think that I don't. Good morning, BLN. It's good to see you. And I did take some wrenches away. I just was going to give them back. So let me just give you your wrench back. There was something taking place that I needed to adjust. So everyone was kind of given their wrench back as they joined chat. So thank you guys for being here. There was something else I wanted to touch on too, as far as these streets and stuff. But if I remember it, I'll pause again.
About 4:12 a.m. Xana is on her TikTok app. Again, in the second floor room, it would be this side of me. If I look this way, it's kind of dark this above the private car here. That would be Xana's room on the second floor where her and Ethan were. She's on her TikTok app in that room at 4:12 a.m., Vinny. So we know that's going on at the time. And then there's this gap where this white car's picked up at 4:20 a.m. speeding away. Maybe that's when the tire marks were left right out here in front. And then exiting Valencia Drive, which is a dense neighborhood. You'd have to kind of know where you're going to get out of here that direction.
Great work, Chanley. I mean, we really got, and great job by the crew out there in Moscow.
Yeah, I do have to say hats off to the Court TV crew out there when they were recording like these little streets and the path that he took. I really appreciate them giving us a first like firsthand experience driving down these roads, what he possibly did when he turned around, where he was. I really appreciate Court TV's reporting on this case from day one. They always do a good job. I couldn't help but kind of laugh a little bit as we saw a car coming up the same road that Court TV camera person in the car was going down. Like, can you imagine if it just like caught an accident, like them just squeezing by the cars and you just hear like, oh my gosh. Sorry, guys. Sometimes we just have to have a little comedic break. But this is almost over. I appreciate you guys being here. It's a little bit longer than my normal stream. So thank you so much. It's almost done. Hit the like if you haven't done so. And again, we will be going over to CDT and then Alex Erickson's live chats today as well.
That's working with you to really give us an idea. I mean, it's a very small area. You're making all these passes by. You can see all the windows. You know what's lit, what's not lit. And he's in the area for like a half hour. All right, Chanley, I know we're going to speak at the top of next hour. You're going to walk us through the floor plan of the home, and we'll talk about the surviving roommate. But right now, I want to bring back in Jose Orench, retired FBI agent. Jose, we've gone through this. I know you've gone through this affidavit in great detail. Let me ask you about a killer who is passing by. He's about to commit quadruple murder, kind of passes by 3 times. Looks like he's about to park, then turns around, comes back again. Does this tell you anything about this guy? Is this a very sophisticated murderer, a first-time murderer? Does it reveal anything when we think about these actions in that half hour leading up to the time that he gets inside that home?
Yeah, that's kind of something that would be left up to FBI profilers to be able to give you a better answer on what the mindset is of someone that's doing these things. Again, my expertise is more in the area of electronic surveillance and forensic evidence.
Gotcha. So if you can give me, we have about a minute left, a little less than a minute. Give us sort of the wrap up of what you take away from this affidavit.
Yeah, so the wrap up, we were up on the owner of the vehicle matching the eyewitness description. With this, they were able to also determine that the suspect had interactions with law enforcement, and that's how they obtained the cell phone, which was crucial because that cell phone number is what they used to obtain the cell site location and the whereabouts of the cell phone on the times that it was on, and it matched the vehicle suspect locations. And then the final milestone that I captured from here was the trash cover that they did at the suspect's family, where they were able to obtain DNA that they compared with DNA that was found on an item at the crime scene, and that was the final piece of information that they needed, or they determined that they needed to do their arrest warrant.
All right. Thank you guys for being here again. I really appreciate it. So if you just joined us earlier in the stream, we go through some updates from News Nation. They talked to Bobby Chacon, the former FBI guy. He gives his thoughts about Brian returning back to the scene. We went through Kaylee's sister's recent interview. It's her first interview done since the arrest of Brian. So that was really interesting. Check that out. And then we go through a visual timeline with paired with the affidavit timeline that they've given us. So go back through if you haven't seen that. I also have a visual synopsis of the crime scene from everything that they gave us in the affidavit. So it's sort of paired with some visuals for all that. We also hear from somebody who knew Brian in 2013, used to use hard drugs with him. So that witness statement or statement was very interesting in my opinion. So just go back through. There's some statements from law enforcement that they said earlier in the case in reference to the door being open when they got there on the scene. So keep that in mind. The door with the wreath on it was left open. And now that we know that Brian went back to the scene, we don't know why, but Bobby Chacon speculates that maybe he wanted to revisit the crime scene like a lot of killers do. We also speculated perhaps he was looking for the sheath. Perhaps instead of going inside to look for the sheath, he just thought in his mind, Maybe I dropped it on my way to the car. We don't know, but we're going to go through things that Bryan did after the crime took place in other streams. So I'm going to put together stuff like that for you guys. And again, we're going to dig through stuff. So we'll be digging through on Alex Erickson's channel later and CDT's channel. Guys, if you could just refresh the time for your live streams in chat. I forgot already. Heather, thanks for being here. Yes, watch the replay. I edited it, stuff together for you guys all weekend. So I really hope you like it. And thank you, Alex. I appreciate that. You always look cute as well. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, and I put together a new intro. So if you guys didn't see my new intro, I hope you like it. And comment down below. Let me know if you like it and all that. So again, guys, I've had too much coffee. I got to get going. Good morning, Roll Morn. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I see you've gained subscribers. That's good. I just appreciate you guys being here. All I ask is you guys like the stream. If you subscribe, then that's a bonus for me. But I just want to thank you all and everyone who joined the membership today. Thank you. For those who sent a super chat, thank you. For those who sent Cash App, thank you. If you haven't checked out my Chris Watts documentary and you like that case, then check that out as well. So again, guys, we'll talk very soon. We usually do another stream here on this channel. Sometimes I put out short videos too, so look for uploads for that and live streams. We kind of do a little bit of both here on this channel. So again, thank you guys for being here, and we'll talk very soon.